Hello, hello. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to this special live edition of Turnaround Marriage. My name is Scott. My wife Rachel's here, and we're here with an awesome couple today, Josh and Lauren. You guys are going to love to hear their story. It's a powerful story that they gave us the name for, from turbulence to triumph. I've got the word switched there. I'm going to have to fix in a second. But we're so glad that you're joining in today because you need to listen to this story. It's a testimony of God's grace and mercy and God working in their lives. And Josh and Lauren are an amazing couple. They live in the Northeast. Josh is a business owner and Lauren is a stay-at-home mom and a homeschooling mom, which has got those unique challenges with their kiddos. And we are just so excited to have you guys here today. Hi, Josh and Lauren. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Doing real well. Got to fix my banner here, and got my wife Rachel coming in from a different location. Rach, you doing okay? Whoop, you're muted. Got to unmute you again. We shall get you. Hopefully we'll get you. Josh and Lauren, let's go back to you guys.
Sure.
We are so thankful that God brought you to us a few months ago. Why don't you guys share with us where you were last summer? Where were you before you came to us?
Ladies first. I'll let you start.
Hey, that's safe. Yeah. I like that.
I think it was a climax for us. We had a lot of hard circumstances in our lives, from my health issues to running a business to our son's health early in his years. Just a lot of challenges that we would get through. But then even in the good times, we noticed that there was still the way in which we were dealing with one another. Maybe it wasn't all of the challenging circumstances. Maybe it was the way that we were dealing with each other. And so last summer, we were in a place where both of us were really frustrated. We had sought out counsel and it had its place. It was helpful. But I don't think we felt like we were moving forward. I think the best word to describe our situation was stuck. And I had felt like that for a long time, and I just didn't know how to get us to move forward. And then for Josh, I think he had a breaking point this summer and realized, you can answer for yourself, but realized I think we need to do something here or else it's going to be a big problem. So, I had felt it several times, so discouraged, so defeated, and almost just like, I'm done. I don't know what done would have looked like, but just like, I need a break. I'm done. I'm giving up. And I didn't want to feel that way any longer. And I think it was hard for him to understand that. And I think you came to that point this summer too.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you, Josh, but what you were saying,
Sure.
Lauren, is like you were looking at a lot of the things going on in your world and you were pointing out those as the reason that you had the problems. But now you can look back and see it really wasn't just that there were things happening in life. It was also the way you guys were negotiating life together.
Yes.
Fair to say. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So Josh, what was your perspective on things last summer?
I'm a pretty optimistic individual. I normally push forward in most any situation. Running a business, you sort of gain that ability just to kind of see past things, and you always want to see the positive outcome. But in where we were, it was a matter of, as the title says, there was just, we got to a point of being so turbulent that it was to a point of either we're going to just lose it all or somehow we're going to have to rebound. Like one of these two things are going to happen. And for me, it was actually leaning more towards the element of, I just rather give up and move on because I don't know how much more I can put into this to keep it going. And so that was me for the turning point. That was in August time frame when that was happening. So.
And you realized, boy, this is not a good situation.
No,
and I'm sure you had to have been concerned with what your kids were seeing, and how were they lashing out? Were they acting out at that point?
They weren't lashing out, but they were recognizing it, and they had their input into it. Here we go again, sort of concept, comments from both my oldest and my youngest. We have two. We have my oldest is 12, and my youngest is 9, and both of them different perspectives and different responses, but both similar due to our interactions as husband and wife. So as their parents.
I appreciate you guys sharing that, and your story is remarkable. It's powerful to really have experienced the change that we have. I'm just curious before we dive forward into where things are. What, as you look back, what was that moment that was like the breaking point or the near breaking point for the two of you? Does anything stand out for you?
Well, I was on a business trip when it happened. So I was in my hotel room, and I just said I didn't know what to do at that point. And that was my breaking point. Like that was when I threw in the towel. At that point. I wasn't even around, and we were just arguing over the phone. Quite frankly, I don't even remember what it was about. And it was probably something not even worth arguing about. But it just came to the point of just saying something needs to happen. And then when I got back, that's when Lauren had said, well, we actually distanced ourselves quite a bit. Kind of our own internal separation. And then Lauren came to me with this program. At first I'm like, well, this just sounds like another program. So I'll entertain it at least. So
yeah. That was actually my next question. Were you a little skeptical when you came to us?
I would definitely say yes.
Okay.
Because when you go through situations such as this, where you're dealing with a relationship and it's just not panning out well, and it just is not, like, something's just not working, and you just don't know what that is yet, right? Like you're trying to make that connection, trying to figure out what that is, but it's just, you're hitting a wall constantly, and then you're trying all of these programs, whether it's counseling or seeking advice. You just often feel like you're in the same race over and over. You're just in the hamster wheel, just continuing to move.
Yeah.
And the results, and we were going through counseling. I will say that prior to the event, which changed everything. But what was the result? I mean, I really enjoyed the time with our counselor, and I think our counselor was trying to dig up things, and not for the sake of pitting against husband and wife, but trying to get on the same page, right? But it was a long process.
It was taking too long.
It was definitely taking too long in that. And so when Lauren brought me this 10-week course, I'm like, all right, we'll see what we can do in 10 weeks.
Well, Lauren, you had to have not been as skeptical yourself if it was kind of your idea that you brought to the table. Where were you at when you came to us?
It's interesting because I had been in that breaking point place several times in the marriage prior to Josh. And at this point, when he felt that way, yes, I was concerned and I was discouraged, but in my spirit, I honestly said, good, because I just know that God brings us to the end of ourselves, and that both of us would need to be in a place of coming to the end of ourselves to say, God, you have to intervene, like, miraculously now. It's not that we didn't take some ownership and seek out counsel, because we did, but I knew that it was at the point where this was going to be God's intervention. And so I diligently prayed, and I was concerned, but I actually felt like this could be a good thing. And as I was praying is when I found your program, and I just knew, I just knew. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a God thing. Some people say it's just God, but God, I just knew this is what we needed to do.
Awesome.
And we needed to give it a shot. And I think for me, when we had one of those initial phone calls with you, Scott, and you were explaining the program to us, and you were talking to us, asking us, are you ready to take ownership? And we both had to answer.
Mm-hmm.
That alone, even before the program, is key, because you have to come to a place either as an individual or as a couple where you take ownership and you say, this is worth the fight, not fighting with each other, but put the time and energy for each other. So why walk away saying, we're just going to continue to fight with each other and leave it there and have no hope and no positive result, instead of saying it is worth trying to fight for each other, and both coming to that mindset. Even as an individual, because I know that's the case for some, before God, it's a worth it fight before God, no matter what the outcome is. So for me, I was actually hopeful. I was actually hopeful, and I was glad to be in a mutual place of brokenness before God.
Oh, that's so powerful though. And I love that. And you guys really did demonstrate what you just described, Lauren, throughout our program. And that was owning completely. Like, even if hypothetically we were only 2% at fault in our marriages, to own that 100% can really be a powerful change, impact in the marriage. So guys, I'm curious, when you did start diving in, really owning things, started doing the work, what did you notice that started to happen right away for you two? Either one of you could answer.
Well, for me, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't until like week 3 that I really started diving in.
Okay.
In the beginning, I definitely was going through the motions of going through the program, which I don't recommend doing that.
I noticed a little bit, but that's okay.
It wasn't until like after the communication and some of the other aspects, which is week 2 technically, but getting into week 3, that's when it really started to take hold for me, as far as what this meant. It's definitely a process. It took a lot more than I thought it was going to take. And by the end, I mean, I personally was just going through things together. And then I found that we started doing things a lot more together. And it wasn't even like prompted, like she's like, well, we should do this. And it just happened. And that, I think, then started playing throughout then our relationship in general. So that's when I started seeing things, was really the engagement. When you're engaged into the program, both together, or I mean, even from an individual, when you're engaged in general, you start to see the change.
I love that. Lauren, anything that you would add to that? Anything that, when do you think the kids started noticing the change? When did you start noticing the changes?
Well, for me, it was right away. Because, and it still was a process. I mean, I saw changes, but then as time went on, I saw even better results. And I could tell the difference when Josh was fully invested versus going through the motions, because I know my husband, so I could tell. So I will say, when things clicked for him and he really started investing, and like the ownership was not just, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to fight for my wife. I really did see a big difference, like he said, several weeks in. But for me personally, it was right away, because I knew that this program was going to help me as an individual overall, with my children, with other relationships. I just wanted to soak up whatever I could. And I remember right away, I think Rachel was talking to me one-on-one, and I remember saying to her, hey, this is what I did. And what do you think about it? And she brought to my attention, have you ever heard of, the concerned sandwich, and how to, more graciously share your heart with someone when you feel there's a conflict or something you need to confront. So I was able to apply that personally to all of my relationships right away. And I just thought, I'm a very open person. I can just tell you, hey, this bothers me, this concerns me. But I was learning how to do it a little bit more gently. So for me, right away, I was just kind of growing as an individual. And I knew it was a program that was going to work because I don't know, I just knew it would. And my personality, I wrote down notes from each week. And I know that the first week was all about extreme ownership. And that was huge. And I remember just enforcing with Josh. I think a lot of week one focused on gratitude as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of, are you fighting with each other or for each other? It was huge. You have to kind of take ownership of at least that. And then I really felt that for me, I needed hugs. I just needed that reassurance, and I needed a hug. And for Josh, that's not like his go-to, but I kept saying to him, I need a hug. I want a hug, just to kind of soften him. And, it begins to get you out of this mindset, gratitude and connecting, even if it's in a physical way, of who your real enemy is. Get out of fight or flight, I think was week one, and recognize the true enemy. And just right up front, knowing that we were in a battle for our lives spiritually against the enemy, because he's out to destroy godly marriages. So right away for me, it was on point. Week two was calling out the person you want to see. And so I thought, one of the patterns is a rut that you can easily get into, that we were both easily getting into. And I think this was a big part of our marital issue, was once patterns become patterns and they're bad patterns and you're stuck and you can't get out of them, you begin to believe that it's always going to be that way. And you begin to believe that lie that nothing is going to change. So then you see that person as, well, this is just how he deals with things and I can't stand it. And that's what he's thinking about me, is how she deals with things. And so then you begin to make this case where that's what that person needs to do differently.
Right.
And I think like week two for me was shifting that mindset, focusing on myself and just continuing to take that ownership, but then calling out in Josh the best in him.
Yes.
And so you both would say, believe the best in one another. And every time I felt like there was going to be a conflict or we were not going to understand each other, I would just stop and say, but I'm going to believe the best in Josh. Instead of being frustrated with how we communicate, how we work through things, I'm going to say, I'm going to believe the best in this conversation, that the best outcome is going to come out of this, because I believe the best in my husband. And so, that was key.
Absolutely. And I love that. And you're laying out, you guys are laying out a lot of what we do, which is awesome. And there's a lot of people out there, I would just say, that they know what a Christian marriage should look like. They know what it should look like, but they don't know how to get there, because it's not a belief problem. As much as it is an understanding problem, it is how we're thinking. It's a thinking problem. And Rachel, as her video feed isn't working, but she said to Josh that going through the motions is a fantastic first step, and to everybody out there for that matter, at least you get you moving in the right direction. And that's exactly a lot of what we do. Like, even if you don't feel necessarily like hugging each other, it can be really powerful still. So you guys demonstrate that just in what you've shared. So I'm curious, guys, I love what you've shared. I love the transformation. Fast forward to today. Where would you guys say that you're at this point in your marriage? Either one of you can go first.
It's leaps and bounds to the triumph. It is still, there are still challenges, right? Any marriage that post the program, right? There's still going to be issues and challenges that are going to arise, but it's the tools in which you receive and you work through and you understand that will prepare you for the challenges yet to come. That definitely is I see that's where we are, right? We are fallen, sinful human beings, and we are going to continue to fall short, right? And it is through Christ that allows us, we talk about identity at some point, but your identity in Christ, growing up in church, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
You hear that a whole lot. But I don't think it really, until you have an example of what that looks like, and can walk that out and can kind of flesh that out, you really don't understand that. It just becomes one of those, Christian sayings, right? That just happens, right? You identify with Christ. Well, what does that mean? And so that transformation that happens, and the tools that you guys give, coupled with the scriptural understanding and the balance of scripture, those are the tools, and those are what help you identify yourself individually with Christ, which in turn are the tools to help you in your marriage. And that's what we have been applying. We've had challenges, like I said, and sometimes we have to go back and try and figure out what is the best tool to use in this scenario.
Exactly. Oh, that's beautiful. And you're so right. I mean, the identity is a really key thinking point. Like, if we've heard we're in Christ, that's one thing to hear it. It's a very different thing to take that upon yourself and really identify with that reality. And it's true. It's what God says of us. And oftentimes when people come to us, that's what's confused for them, is they have forgotten what God says of them and what God says of their marriage and their circumstances. And when you can get in alignment with what God is saying, because he's not unclear, he wants a marriage to be a beautiful blessing for you. Of course he does. And so the problem isn't what he's saying, it's that we're not hearing it or believing it, or both. So I love that as you share that. And Lauren, where would you say that you're at now versus before?
I feel blessed. I mean, I think I shared with you another possible title besides Turbulence to Triumph could be Battles to Blessings. So I feel blessed. I feel like God is answering, and he divinely provided this program. Step one, just recognizing not only your own identity, but your spouse as beloved and valued in Christ is huge. So I think one of the last, I think, group sessions that we were part of, I had this necklace on. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
So we love that we come to the table with celebrations in this program. Okay, there it is.
Beautiful.
And so I'm not one who, like, I appreciate gifts, but I don't really need them often. So when they do come and it's something, that is special from my husband's heart to me, I truly value it. And this is a beautiful, I'm sure, worth quite a bit, necklace. And I came to that last group session and I broke it right before the session. And I was able to share with everybody on there, look at this beautiful necklace that my husband gave me. And I'm celebrating what God has done in our marriage. And here we're at the end of our program, ready to graduate. And I have this beautiful gift to show, and it's broken. And I shared with the group that this is what God is trying to show each of us in our marriages. Just because this necklace had broken, it doesn't mean you discard it. It doesn't mean it's not valuable.
Right.
I'm going to take it to the jeweler and I'm going to get it fixed. And you might have to wait and be patient until it's fixed, but I'm confident that it's going to be restored. So here I am, now showing you this beautiful necklace that has been restored. And I think that's what our title is all about, whether it's Battle to Blessings or Turbulence to Triumph. You hold on to the value. This necklace did not lose its value just because some things needed to be corrected. As an individual, I don't lose my value because I'm working through some things in my life or in my marriage. He doesn't lose his value, and our marriage certainly doesn't lose its value.
Right.
So it's worth holding on to. And when you see it that way, it gives you the strength in the hard times to keep going. And so I know you talked to us like at the end of the program that we're going to have to continue to condition what we've learned. And I love that we can go back, as Josh mentioned the tools. I love that we can go back, and we've even talked about, hey, when a particular issue arises in our marriage, let's say it's financial, we're going to go back to that section of the program and meditate on what are some key things we need to pull out. What if we're starting to struggle with communication? We're going to go back to that aspect of the program and focus on it, because you don't just go through the program once and say, well, that's it. I don't just read the Bible, once in my lifetime and say, that's it.
Right.
You have to train your mind and your habits to come in conformity with what is triumphant, what
That's
is the blessing in this marriage, and you have to continue to condition that. So we appreciate the tools because for a lifetime we always have these to
Yeah.
go back to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's beautiful. So now it's like you realize that if you're going to get a situation that's difficult,
Mhm.
starting to get stuck, unlike before where you weren't sure how to get out of that. No,
Yep.
now you have the tools that that you absolutely can get out of it. And Rachel's
Yes.
saying we can continue to grow and invest in our marriages. You're exactly right. And
Yep.
if we're not investing, if we're not growing, then we're dying, same as a plant,
Mhm.
So I love that. And guys, Josh, you showed me up with that gift, man. That was an awesome. I think was that a Christmas gift for Lauren?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, way better than what I got Rachel. And
No
yes,
pressure, Scott. No pressure.
no, I know exactly.
Valentine's Day is next week.
We were so excited seeing that. I mean, what a wonderful gift,
Yeah.
thoughtful thing. And we were just so proud of the way that you guys have shown up every step of the way. We love your perspective and your ownership, and your willingness to be coachable was really, really key. And that's hard when you guys are Lauren, you're teaching your kids. Josh, you're a business owner with employees. Like, you're not used to sitting in the place of being coached, right? That's usually what
Yeah.
you're doing.
It's
And so I just was really impressed with the way that you guys really said, we're going to empty our cups and we want to be filled up and with what works. And so I just want to honor you guys again for your willingness, your desire, your commitment that was very, very apparent, and is why a lot of the reasons you guys got a great outcome. With just a few moments that we have left today, I'm curious what you guys might share with those that are out there today that are listening in, that might be feeling, this marriage seems hopeless. It's deep-seated ruts, or I'm alone in this. Like, you can imagine all the different places that people might be today that are hearing this thinking, okay, that sounds great. They got a really nice fire behind them and they look like this beautiful couple on this, this interview, but they don't really understand my situation. What would you say to them?
it's I being a business owner and running a company and having 20 plus employees with all different personalities. um, I've learned a lot from that perspective. But what I often was overlooking was probably one of the closest relationships in my life ever that I wasn't paying attention to. And so no matter how far separated you are emotionally, physically, you're tired of the relationship. I want to go back to Lauren's analogy of it is worth it in the relationship. What God has created is perfect. There's nothing wrong with marriage. Marriage is perfect because He designed it to be that way. It's just sin has gotten in the way. And I think we need to come to that understanding and glimpse in reality of when you're going through these situations, that it's my sin, it's my spouse's sin. It is that's what's separating us. And so what God has made perfect, He can restore it and make it whole again, if you are willing to let Him do that. In our last session on Thursdays, I gave the analogy of the potter, and clay has a level of resistance to it too, right? That's our heart sometimes, and our mindset is resistance. But if the potter continues to wash it in water, which there's a ton of symbology there from that perspective, the living water,
Right.
and it becomes moldable in the potter's hands, it becomes a perfect vessel, right? It becomes what he needs it to be. And so when you come to that level of surrender, no matter what walk of life you're in, where how deep, how far separated, how long it's been going on, how short, if it's a new relationship, new marriage, or something that's been 20 years plus, 30 years plus, if you don't come to the understanding that it is sin that has gotten in the way, and that's the wedge that's driving you,
Right.
You are only going to continue to drive that chasm further and further. It's that surrender that you need to come to truly bring that marriage back together and restore it and make it whole. Let the potter do what he does best.
You're so right. It's a chasm between not just the two of you, but often between you and God too.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Lauren, anything you'd add?
Well, I am definitely a deep, symbolic, analytical person, but I'm going to keep it really, really practical, actually, which is not typical of my personality. But I will say the program, Turnaround Marriage. I have a teacher background, elementary education, special education, communications background. I've looked at a lot of different types of program in education and curriculum. This is what I'm going to say. I can tell you that Turnaround Marriage is done with excellence, the order in which everything is laid out. I'm also very careful, I would say, cautious to make sure that a biblical foundation is truly there, because wise counsel really isn't wise, in my opinion, without the biblical foundation. Right. So to look for a program that has been laid out with excellence, with a strong biblical foundation, and fun. I mean, it's balanced. The first few weeks are a little bit heavier, and then it lightens up, and then it gets a little heavier again, and you sort of look at yourself and your family and past patterns, right? But the order in which everything is laid out, not only is done with excellence, I believe is Scott and Rachel are truly called. This is their calling, and this has been divinely orchestrated by God. I will say that. Wow. So knowing that, this program has been probably the biggest investment we made. I think a marriage is worth fighting for, whether you lose everything that you have and you just are left standing together. That's how valuable a godly marriage is. And if that's not the outcome, it is valuable that before God, you fought as an individual and you can answer to him and he will be faithful unto you. So to me, the investment that we made in Turnaround Marriage, we made in each other, to focus on the program is absolutely something I would recommend. I would say trust God in it. This program is, I believe, divinely orchestrated by God to bless other couples. So go for it if you're hesitating. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That means the world. And we're very forthcoming that our story was not the same as yours, obviously, but it was one of being in a very dark place, and that to see that God has redeemed and is using our story and the struggle that we had in our own marriage to be used for people like you is it's exactly like our redeeming God. That's what he does. And I'm just so excited for the two of you. Thank you for this time today. I'm so excited to see how God is going to use you, how he's going to use this testimony, how he's also going to use the testimony of your lives and who you guys are moving ahead. And my goodness, leaving this lasting legacy also for your children. That's going to have a ripple effect for generations to come.
Yeah.
So guys, we're super proud of you. We thank you for your time today. It means the world that you guys are both busy, and for both of you to be here today on this call, it means so much to us. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Scott and Rachel, because you're humble and you're real. They are the real deal. So you have a eternal place in our hearts. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. We look forward to meeting in person sometime soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, guys, special thanks to Josh and Lauren. What an amazing couple. We're so privileged to know them, be able to walk some of their journey with them. And if you're out there today and you're saying, wow, this is a pretty amazing story, and you were thinking, this seems like maybe it's hopeless, or maybe it's been stuck for so long, we want to encourage you to reach out. And what we do is we hop on a free breakthrough call with you, and you can go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Help you to identify what are some of those sticking points and really help you to dig into what's holding you guys back and what you guys hope and dream that this marriage can be. And if we can help you guys, we're absolutely going to make that clear. And if not, we'll point you in the right direction regardless. Regardless, we want to get you that clarity. So Josh and Lauren, thanks again. You guys have a blessed day.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.